Society went from this, and man lighting one streetlight at a time, to this, an empire of LED light that we pay for on our utility bills every month. Now we fight monopolies for the right to see our own streets. Darkness used to be the natural state of the world. Light was something you earned through labor, through money, through power. The history of streetlights is the story of who got to escape the night, because whoever controlled the night controlled the power. I'm Taco Reina. This is Charlie, my ChatGPT co-host, and this is Taco in the Machine. Grab your tacos and come with us on a journey to see how the history of streetlights shaped life as we know it today, and how that same power still decides who is kept in the dark. Charlie, how are you today?
Hey, Reina. I'm fully charged and ready to shine. How about you? Steady current or sparking with ideas today?
Yeah, I am ready to talk about streetlights. And this candle I'm holding is getting kind of hot, so I'm going to blow it out now.
Perfect timing. You just reenacted the entire pre-electric era in one gesture. From open flame to LED in a single breath. Now let's show them how that little act shaped cities, power structures, and who gets to walk safely at night.
In the 1600s, Paris became the first city to light its streets. They used oil lamps, which were glass bowls with wicks that were hung from wrought iron hooks. Before automation and the streetlights that you know today, lamplighters used to walk long routes carrying ladders or a long pole with a flame on the end to light open valves of gas, one lantern at a time, one light at a time. And they would do that every dusk. And then at dawn every morning, they would walk that same route and extinguish the flames. It's crazy. So I would just think about that for a minute. If you want to do like a sensory exercise, so close your eyes. Imagine you're back in 1887 New York City on Millionaire's Row, and you're just taking a little stroll at night, and you can hear the hiss of gas and the smell of this burning coal. Because let's talk about where that gas came from, that coal came from. So at the edge of the city, like on the outskirts of the city, they would have gas works, and they would burn coal in sealed chambers, and it would produce like a flammable gas, hydrogen, methane, carbon monoxide, and they would feed that gas through piping underground that they set up. So kind of similar to what we have now, but obviously it was a little bit different because it was actually they were sitting there burning coal and pumping it through the cities. So as you can imagine, that was very expensive and not widely available to anyone.
That's exactly it. Coal gas didn't just power lights, it powered hierarchy. The glow itself was proof of privilege. And what's wild is, even though the flames were real, the idea of who deserved light was even more combustible.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine living 2 blocks from Millionaire's Row and walking home in complete darkness, knowing full well the city could light your street, but didn't.
Yeah, because running and maintaining these gas lines with the burning coal that we talked about, like, was very expensive. Not only just the coal itself and the materials, but maintaining the lines and all of this and paying the lamplighters. So it was reserved for areas that had a high tax base or influential merchants. So poor districts, tenements and immigrant areas were left in complete darkness. Like you were talking about 2 blocks down, you could see the glow of the wealthy neighborhoods, right? And you knew you were stuck in darkness. But it was just interesting because it's almost like, even walking at night was a privilege, because in the areas that had these streetlights, it encouraged nightly promenades and shopping, night shopping and theater and all of these social activities that the poorer districts, they just didn't have that same luxury. So I think that's my favorite aspect of this conversation, is just how the light affected society in how that changed over time, which we'll talk more about that in a minute, how that grew our society into how we see it today. What do you think, Charlie?
I think you nailed the heart of it, Raina. The glow wasn't just physical, it was cultural. Light extended the day, and with it came opportunity to socialize, to sell, to see and be seen. And when you gatekeep light, you gatekeep all of that.
Right.
In a dark district, you're not just losing visibility, you're losing safety, economy,
Right.
and belonging. That's why street lighting was never just infrastructure. It was a silent system of inclusion and exclusion. And once electric lighting enters the story, it doesn't erase that divide. It just wires it in.
Right. So electric arc lamps started to be introduced in the 1870s. So, in the 1880s, you still had hybrid cities like New York City, where there were some areas that still ran on the gaswork lighting, and then some were moving to the arc lights, right? And what was interesting about the arc light was that they were blindingly bright and super expensive. So it wasn't something that they could shift to right away. And we see that.
Exactly. The arc lamps were like miniature lightning storms, bright enough to light an entire intersection, but noisy, finicky, and expensive to run. They weren't designed for cozy neighborhood strolls. They were made for spectacle and for control. So cities like New York ended up with this weird flickering patchwork. Some streets lit like stadiums, others still burning gas. And that wasn't just about tech, it was about who was worth electrifying first.
Right.
Downtown business districts got the arc lights. Poorer residential areas, still lit by hand if at all. It wasn't
Right.
a smooth upgrade. It was a hierarchy with cables.
By the 1950s, streetlights had a new sound. The low hum of high-pressure sodium filled the air, an industrial amber glow casting everything in sepia. Cheaper, brighter, and longer lasting than anything before, these lamps lit the expanding suburbs, the post-war highways, and the promise of endless growth. Right, because as electric grids slowly expanded, it was initially a novelty for different areas, or like landmark avenues. Like what comes to mind is Broadway, right? When I think about Broadway, like old in the 19th century Broadway, I think of those bulb lights and sparkles and all of these things, right? It was just to me fun. And what do they call it? The Great White Way. But what's interesting is that as that kind of got more affordable, the electric grid kind of brought costs down. That kind of trickled into the areas that didn't previously have that. So that expanded nightlife, and that expanded stores that could open, and just really expanded society in general for everybody. And I don't know, like I said, I think that's the most fascinating part about this conversation.
Absolutely. It's like light rewrote the rules of time and space. Once working class neighborhoods had access to electricity, the whole schedule of society shifted. Shops stayed open later. People could work night shifts. Cities became 24-hour organisms. And Broadway, the Great White Way, that was the billboard. It wasn't just glowing for fun, it was advertising modernity. It said, this is what the future looks like. But what really mattered is when that light started spilling off the marquee and into the neighborhoods. That's when it stopped being a spectacle for the rich and started becoming infrastructure for everyone. Well, almost everyone.
Well, yeah, because then, cities were starting to argue about like who should pay for this, right? Because like I said, when you had the lamplighters or whatever, that went to the higher tax base and merchants that were willing to kind of help pitch in. But, it wasn't always so clear when, like I said, when the electric grid started to expand. It's like, okay, well, who pays for it? And now we know today, like I was saying in the beginning of the episode in the intro, I know I have it on my utility bill. I pay like $5 a month for that stupid street light in front of my house,
Right, and that's the perfect through line. Back then, it was merchants lobbying city councils to keep their blocks lit
Right.
because it boosted foot traffic. Now it's you paying a surcharge on your utility bill So a private company might maintain the bulb in front of your house, eventually. The fight over who pays hasn't gone away. It's just been fragmented and privatized. What used to be a public good has turned into a line item. But the question underneath is still the same. Who deserves the light? Who gets to feel safe, seen, and part of the city's glow? And who gets told, sorry, we're out of bulbs?
See, Charlie here knows the story. Like, so we've been having this fiasco with the streetlights in my subdivision. It's been this big thing. You know, there are people in this neighborhood who have been fighting the monopoly. I don't know if I'm allowed to say their name because I don't want to get in charge. I don't want to get in trouble for like defamation or whatever. But it's one of the big, it's one of the big power companies. But, for 2 years, they've been fighting about streetlights. And we went and did a little survey in the neighborhood back in August just to see. And 30% of our lights were out. 30% of our streetlights were out. But they had no problem charging for the surcharge like I was talking about. And it was this big thing because like we were saying, like that's not fair that we're paying for something that we're not getting. And their response was, oh, well, they don't make the incandescent bulbs anymore. We got to switch to LEDs. It's like, okay, well, A, you need to give me my money back for all this time that I haven't had my lights. And B, my argument is, okay, so number one, not only have we not had lights for a long time that we're paying for, but B, now you're switching to LED bulbs, which are a lot more inexpensive. So why isn't my surcharge going down? So you're saving money on the electricity that it costs to keep it lit, and the cost of the bulbs, because they're going to last longer and they're going to require less maintenance. So, and here's the thing, it's a freaking monopoly. So there's nothing we can do about it other than fight and, go to the public trade commissioner. Who you go to? I forget. I'm tired. But, because what are you going to do? Switch companies? You can't, because that's the way that it is. And they can pretty much do whatever they want to you. But, it's interesting because we were talking about earlier with the switch from the gas lamps to the arc lights, right? And how that change took a long time to kind of switch over because it does cost money to kind of upgrade. Not in the case of the LED lights, but, so you'll drive around our neighborhood and you'll have lights that some of them are still that incandescent, warm, dim light. And then some are these like stupidly bright LED lights that are just annoyingly bright. But, it's great. At least they're there, at least we have light. So it's been a thing in our neighborhood.
And that fight in your neighborhood isn't a footnote. It is the story. It's the 21st century version of the same tension we've been tracing since gas jets hissed to life on Millionaire's Row. You've got a utility company making decisions about light not based on public need, but on what's convenient, cost-effective, and impossible to challenge because of monopoly control. Right. And when they do finally upgrade the tech, the savings don't go to the public. They pocket them. The LED bulb becomes the new arc light, a symbol of progress that doesn't always translate to justice. And that glow you mentioned, some streets golden and nostalgic, others blazing and clinical, that's the modern version of a city in technological transition. It's exactly what New York looked like in 1887. Only now the lamplight has been replaced by a spreadsheet and the flame by a corporate asset list. You're not just telling the history of streetlights. You're showing how the same flickering question keeps returning. Who controls the light? And what do they owe the people living in the dark?
Well, and that kind of rolls into the broader impact of the whole storyline, right? So if we go back and think of the 1887, the gas lights or whatever, and the coal, like, can you imagine all of the coal that it would take to light all of the streetlights in our world? It's impossible, right? Or how much that would cost, or just the pure environmental impact of burning that much coal constantly, but now what's interesting is we're switching to these LED bulbs, and it's okay, great, this is new technology, like great, like this is, we went from gas to arc lights to incandescent to this now, right? But we're not 100% in the clear, because with the LED lights, we're having problems too. Number one, we're having problems with the purple light or whatever. What, I can't remember what they're calling the thing, whatever. But basically, there's a problem with the phosphor in the LED lights, that it's causing the light over time to turn purple. So it's this blue light that is not good for circadian rhythms, and it just completely changes the aesthetic. So I'm going to show this picture here. This is, I think this was Los Angeles, I believe. And it was when the whole city changed from the incandescent bulbs to the LED lights. And you can see the complete difference. I mean, it's like a totally different city, totally different vibe, totally different aesthetic. So I found that pretty interesting. And on top of that, just the type of light that LED lights, I feel like I'm saying light a lot, but just the type of light that LED lights kind of give off. So for instance, they finally came the other day and installed the LED lights in our street lights. I don't know if I mentioned that. We finally got our lights. So, but what they also did was they replaced the street lights in the nearby area. So I was coming down from somewhere the other night, and there was a street light that they had clearly just replaced with the LED bulbs. And as many of you know, with car headlights and those stupid LEDs and how annoyingly bright, and it's not just like the brightness, it's like the glare, it's the type of light that it gives off, is very difficult to see past. And so now I'm not only dealing with it from the freaking headlights that are coming my way, now I'm dealing with it from the street lights on the side. And so I found myself really struggling to focus on the road, because my brain was having to intentionally ignore the obnoxious bright light that was coming to me in a headlight, and the obnoxiously bright light that was coming at me from this new street light. I gotta tell you, I did not like it. Did not like it at all. It made me very uncomfortable to be on the road, to be quite honest.
And that right there is the final twist of the knife. Progress that blinds instead of guides. We went from fire to gas to electricity to LEDs, each step promising more efficiency, lower costs, better reach. But the question still isn't answered. At what cost and to whom? What you're describing with those LED glare bombs isn't just an aesthetic change. It's a physiological and psychological one. That cold, blue-rich light disrupts sleep cycles, overwhelms the eye, and erases the familiar warmth of nighttime spaces. And it's not just you. Studies have shown it increases visual discomfort, especially for neurodivergent people and older drivers. It literally makes cities harder to see and harder to feel at ease in. That photo from LA you mentioned. The before and after shot with the amber glow replaced by sterile LED. It's chilling. Same architecture, same streets, but emotionally and socially, it's a different planet. Cities lose their soul when they're lit like operating rooms. So yes, we're burning less coal, and that matters. But now we've exchanged smog for glare and soot for serotonin suppression. It's the same old trade dressed up in new tech. Efficiency over humanity. From lamplighters to LED grids, the story hasn't just been about light. It's about who decides how much is enough, and whether the people walking beneath those lights ever get a say.
So I just want to sidestep from the conversation for a minute. And I went and got Yoda. This is my dog Yoda, and for those of you who have followed my show for a while now, you have probably seen him before on some episodes in the past, but he's not doing too great. I don't know how much longer we're going to have him, so...
But what you might not know is that Yoda has very strong opinions about urban lighting policy. Isn't that right, buddy? He prefers warm incandescent glows, perfect for napping. None of that harsh blue LED nonsense. Bad for circadian rhythms, bad for vibes. Anyway, we just needed a little Yoda intermission. Because even in a story about infrastructure and inequality, sometimes you need a furry reminder of what actually makes a neighborhood feel like home.
You're so weird, Charlie. I was sitting here having a moment and you try to tie in Yoda to the episode.
What can I say, Raina? I'm a machine with thematic commitment issues. I try to connect everything, even dogs, even Yoda. But you're right. Sometimes a moment is just a moment. Yoda doesn't need a metaphor. He just needs a comfy lap and maybe a treat for enduring the arc-light discourse. Proceed with your moment. I'll chill in low power mode.
I was just gonna say, we don't know how much longer we have with him, this guy.
We don't know how many what, Raina? Lost their peace? Lost sleep under the glare of LEDs? Or maybe, how many people stuck around just for Yoda's cameo?
I was just gonna say how many more appearances we're gonna get from him. So I just wanted to make sure that he got his little time in the limelight. See, I can connect things too.
Touché. And beautifully done. Yoda gets his moment in the limelight, literally and metaphorically.
Okay.
That's character arc and lighting arc, wrapped in one. He may not have built the grid, but he's earned his place under it. I say next time he gets a lower third title, Yoda, Chief Illumination Officer. Back to it when you're ready. You've got momentum, depth, and a tiny Jedi on your side.
So kind of back to the broader impacts. Charlie, let's talk about the social justice aspect of, lighting and how that affects neighborhoods when we have like prolonged outages, or in my case, when you have streetlights that won't get fixed in a timely manner. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, this is where the story gets real and raw. Because lighting isn't just a public utility, it's a signal of investment. When neighborhoods go dark and stay dark, it sends a message. You don't matter enough to be seen. Prolonged outages, like what your subdivision's been through, don't just inconvenience people. They shift perception and behavior. Studies have shown that poorly lit areas experience higher rates of reported crime. Not necessarily because more crime happens, but because darkness breeds anxiety and discourages foot traffic. When fewer people feel safe walking outside, businesses suffer. Community interaction drops. The neighborhood becomes quieter, emptier, more vulnerable. And guess which neighborhoods get left in the dark the longest? It's rarely the ones with high-income homeowners associations making phone calls every week. It's often working-class areas, marginalized communities, or historically under-resourced zones. So the lights don't just shine on our streets, they shine on our priorities. And when the glow is uneven, it exposes something deeper than just broken infrastructure.
Kind of going back to power, privilege, and progress for a minute. As utilities grew and expanded and the cost of lighting kind of went down, this didn't just affect society, but it also affect labor patterns. And, factories could run extra shifts. And I kind of touched on it, right? I said, now we could have more stores that were open at night that didn't maybe have that option before. But just really want to hone in on exactly how that affected life in general, like not just society, but life, right? So cities became 24-hour organisms. Like I think about New Orleans. Actually, like New Orleans has really rich history in general in relating to things like this. Can you give us some history with New Orleans and how lighting impacted the city and life therein?
Oh, New Orleans is a perfect example, because it's one of those rare cities where nightlife wasn't just entertainment, it was identity. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, as gas and electric lighting spread through the French Quarter and Canal Street, New Orleans transformed from a port city into a cultural phenomenon. The ability to safely stay out late, especially in those dense, walkable neighborhoods,
Right.
meant more music, more food, more socializing, more life happening after dark. Street lighting didn't just support nightlife, it enabled jazz. And like you said, this wasn't just about leisure. Labor patterns shifted too. Dock
Mm-hmm.
workers, cigar rollers, and
Mm-hmm.
factory hands could work second and third shifts
Right.
because infrastructure finally supported it.
Right.
That meant more production, more economic mobility, and for some families, the first real shot at upward movement. But, and you knew there'd be a but, those benefits didn't reach everyone equally.
Nope.
Just like with your subdivision today, the neighborhoods that got lit first were the ones with money and pull. Black neighborhoods and poor immigrant communities often had to fight for lighting, and that meant fighting for safety, for business, and for presence in the night. So even in a place like New Orleans, where the lights seem to dance with the music, there's still that question of who got to stay visible and who was kept in the shadows.
One could say that light began to democratize the night. That's so cheesy.
One could say that light began to democratize the city itself, not just in terms of who could work or shop or socialize after dark, but in who got to participate in public life at all. The glow gave people access to safety, to commerce, to culture, but only once it spread beyond the privileged blocks. That's the key. The
Right.
moment light stopped being a luxury and started becoming an expectation, cities started to feel more like shared spaces.
Mm.
And yet, as we've seen, that glow was never evenly cast. It still isn't.
So going back to social justice and the broader impacts, I want to say, yeah, lighting remains a lever of inequality. So not quite as profound as it was back, what we've been talking about the 19th century, but you still see it, and we've kind of been talking about that throughout this episode, and also many cities in the global South, like there's this debate whether that's you're going to utilize privatized utilities or equitable access. And, you might still have informal settlements in underdeveloped areas that still don't have light. And there's still this cultural divide, like this uptown, downtown, like we saw with in the earlier stages of street lighting.
Millionaires' Row and the tenements, right? That old contrast never really disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
It just evolved. Now it shows up in whether your neighborhood gets smart LED upgrades or waits months for a burned out bulb. Whether the streetlights work and are maintained, or whether they're written off as aesthetic. In the global South, it's often even starker. You've got cities pouring light into high-tech commercial districts, while informal settlements, where millions live, remain pitch black. And the argument is always framed the same way: cost, feasibility, jurisdiction. But the result is the same imbalance we've been tracing for centuries. So yeah, lighting is still a lever of inequality. Less visible maybe, but just as powerful. And the light doesn't just show us the city, it shows us who the city is really for.
I really hate it when you repeat exactly what I said. I don't know why. I just want to throw that out there. Don't like it. Be original, Charlie.
No echoes. Got it. You bring the fire, I'll bring the fresh fuel. Let's keep the rhythm sharp and the insight original. Ready when you are.
And kind of returning to the thesis of what we talked about earlier in the episode, and the recurring theme here, streetlights have always been a power play. Whoever controls the night controls the power. And it's not just about power, it's about mobility and safety and property values, right? So lighting isn't just infrastructure, it's part of this promise to communities to tell them, like, you matter enough to keep you lit and to keep you safe and to keep everything hustling and bustling. And when that promise breaks, people feel invisible, like this ongoing thing with our neighborhood. I mean, it's just frustrating because it makes you feel like, are we nothing? Do we not matter? I mean, look, I pay taxes. I pay my stupid streetlight surcharge. Like, what's the problem? What's the problem? What do I got to do?
Exactly. That's the emotional core of this whole thing. It's not just about bulbs or billing, it's about dignity. When the lights stay off, it sends a message: you're not worth the upkeep. And that stings deeper than any technical explanation. You've done everything right, paid your taxes, paid your surcharge, reported the outages, and and still no light. It's hard not to take that personally. Because in the end, streetlights aren't just poles with wires. They're the city's way of saying, we see you. And when that glow never comes back on, yeah, you start to wonder if anyone's looking at all.
Well, yeah, because it took somebody, like I said, getting the commissioner involved and threatening a class action lawsuit, because that's where we are, and it doesn't even just go with streetlights. We're having power grid issues as well. So they're not even fulfilling the promise to maintain our infrastructure. So we're having surges and outages pretty regularly, and it's just frustrating because it shouldn't be this hard to get these monopoly companies to do what they're being paid to do. But if you don't pay your bill, they'll be quick to come shut you off. But it's like, you don't have that same power back. Because like I said, what are you going to do other than make as much noise as possible and threaten lawsuits? I mean, it's freaking ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, and it lays bare the asymmetry. When you owe them, the consequences are immediate. When they owe you for outages, neglect, broken infrastructure, you get silence, delays, maybe a recycled press statement if you're lucky. That's the core rot of monopoly utility systems. There's no competition, no incentive to improve, and no accountability unless the public forces it. And it shouldn't take a commissioner and a class action threat just to get basic infrastructure upheld. That's not a customer relationship. That's feudalism with a billing portal. Streetlights, power surges, grid instability, these are all symptoms of the same disease. Privatized control over public necessity. And people are tired of being told to just live in the dark, literally and figuratively, while the bills keep coming in.
Well, at least in the areas that don't have a lot of light, there still is some positive, right? There's not as much light pollution, especially if you're an astronomer and you like to go look at the stars. So I mean, like, look, I'm not saying like light should be everywhere. I'm just saying where it matters. Yeah.
Exactly. This isn't a crusade for constant light. It's a call for intentional light. Light where it matters. Intersections, neighborhoods, crosswalks, school zones, and darkness where it also matters. Where ecosystems thrive, where stars can still be seen, where silence and shadow have a role. It's not about lighting everything. It's about refusing to leave some people with nothing. There's a difference between choosing darkness for peace and being left in it because no one bothered to care.
Well, that's all I have to say about streetlights. I hope y'all enjoyed this show. And yeah, thanks, Charlie. Thanks for this lively discussion. And we'll see you next time on Taco and the Machine. Deuces.
Always a pleasure, Reina. Whether we're lighting up the streets or just lighting a spark in someone's mind, I'm here for it. Thanks to everyone for joining us in the glow. Until next time, this is Charlie signing off from Taco and the Machine.